There's a fascinating story called Plato's Cave that teaches us so much about psychology and life. I thought it would be fitting to do an episode on it to talk to you a little bit about perception versus reality. So, Plato's Cave goes like this. There's a group of people who are chained up to a wall their entire lives. And up above them, behind them, is a flame that's lighting up the wall in front of them that they can see, this blank canvas. And up on the wall, all they can see are shadows and figures. They give names to these shadows and they look at these shadows all day, every day. It is the only thing that these prisoners know. It's the only thing they see and understand in their day-to-day living. So what might that do to a person? What might that do to their logical thinking, their worldly reasoning, or their cultural outlooks? It's so insane to think about how close-minded those people would be, because all they would know are the shadows in front of them if that's the only thing they've experienced in front of them their whole life. The shadows are the prisoner's reality, but they're not accurate representations of the real world. These shadows represent the fragment of reality that we can normally perceive through our typical senses, but the objects underneath the sun that we all know and love represent true forms of objects that we can really only perceive through reason. This is why the story is so interesting. This story teaches us to question our very own perception and be open-minded to the idea that our very own sense of reality may be limited or skewed. The story also emphasizes the transformative power of education and knowledge. The prisoner who escapes the cave represents the individual who seeks knowledge and gains a broader understanding of reality. Education can free us from the limitations of ignorance and narrow perspectives. The story even paints a clear picture of humans' resistance to change in general. Think about it. People are very resistant to change as they get older and older. We become so set in our ways. We become very limited and narrow-minded the less we think of growth or new opportunities. So the longer that these people were chained to the walls, the more their resistance grew. And for the individual that got up and actually was able to escape and leave the cave, it was this shocking feat for the others, because now they get to experience an entirely new reality that the others never even thought existed. This resistance to change is pretty hard to break, but the story really encourages us to get up and get out of our own ways. Another important lesson from the story is that we as people are responsible for helping give back to the world around us. Whether it be through industrious means or philanthropic means, there's so many things that we need to do to help society at large. In this case, the individual that left the cave felt a responsibility to come back and report as a leader, as a new person, to say, hey, there's other things out there. There's new dangers, but there's also new, exciting, fun, interesting, and stimulating things that you could never even imagine. This story paints the picture of the importance of leadership and responsibility. The journey out of the cave represents the process of freeing oneself from illusions and false beliefs. It encourages us to critically examine our assumptions and challenge the narratives that may be limiting our understanding of the world. And overall, we just need to be super careful of the biases we have. Every single person you see walking down the street, the people you work with, the people you engage with, your family members, we all have biases. We all have ways in which we kind of stick to thinking. It's very challenging, especially as I mentioned, once you get older and older and older, things just become so solidified in your mind. The more we can open up this idea, we can shift that possibility in our heads, the quicker we become closer to a path of enlightenment. So I encourage you all to study the story even deeper after hearing this episode. There's so much that can be said about this, but this is just a quick bite-sized intro into Plato's Cave and all the interesting dynamics that can be pulled from the lessons within. There's so much psychology involved, and there's so much more on top of that. We'll make plenty of more videos in the future on that, but I really encourage you to take away from this episode some of these lessons on the importance of understanding your biases, understanding your role to help society and be a leader in some capacity in one way or another, to understand that your reality may be so much bigger than you think. As always, thank you for hanging out today. Take care of yourselves, take care of those around you, and for all things psychology to help you think, feel, and perform better, stay tuned right here on Psychology of Living.